There should be a link on Facebook now. You can all take it if you find my post.
Is it a brand new post?
Should be. If it has not, I'll just post it again. Okay, it's sent again.
It's on the personal page? Or
mine.
Okay.
It's on me.
Oh, it's on yours, not the Chimichanga.
No, as soon as we actually start getting a few people in, I'm going to push that as well. In fact, I have it right here. Click, click, taco.
Okay, got it.
Yay. I do wish the live stream was a little easier, but this is the limit for the best chat.
Right here. Click. Click.
Okay, got it.
Yay. I do wish the live stream was a little easier, but this is the
Getting
limit.
some follow-up feedback.
Okay, got it. Yay. I do wish the live stream was a little easier.
Okay, it's published and go. Alright, as we get ready to start the actual entertainment / informational, does anyone have anything they want to air ahead of time?
Is there anything we can do about that?
Can you repeat that real quick?
Come into the mic.
Is there anything we can do about that follow-up feedback?
Yeah, we're kind of getting a little follow-up here and there. Does anyone else hear that?
What are we supposed to be hearing?
It seems to have been gone now. There was a short term where there was some feedback. I think we're okay now. Okay, cool. We should be good. All right. We will go ahead and give 2 moments, and then chat is open. We have some Wow, we have people here already. John Ross, hello, sir. Ryan and I are familiar with that gentleman. All right, we're good to go in about 20 seconds.
Copy that.
Copy.
Roger.
Affirmative.
Kinkos.
Red alert 2.
Oh, I didn't say anything too explicit, but I would like to keep political finger-pointing, anger, and frustration to a minimum because we have a lot of people who have heard too much of it, and they need to hear something a little more hopeful, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Copy that.
Is it fine to talk about history and
Historical stuff is very important, I think. So yes,
comparisons.
Yeah.
You know. Oh.
Yeah.
What about the demographic breakdowns?
I think that's actually fantastic and important as long as we make sure it's not like demographics of people who have caused this or who are responsible for this. At least at this point in time, historically is a different thing.
How about
So no demographics on this election.
I would really think that a lot of people would do a lot better without having that interface at this point.
Right.
Especially after all the things that I was seeing all night last night.
So we're focusing more on just getting people to feel a little bit more empowered, feel a little better because they are scared.
Exactly.
Empowering them right now is the most important thing I think we could possibly do. And it's not just about specific communities. I don't care what or who you are. If you have an issue, I want to make sure that they're heard. So let's go ahead, and I'll go ahead and give us just 10 more seconds here, and then we'll go. All right. 5, 4. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Barrick. You know me as the host of Chimichanga Superstar Podcast. This is a little unscheduled, off the books. I wanted to go ahead and make sure everyone has a voice and someplace to come. But for right now, we're going to take 10 seconds of silence and let everyone have a chance to just think about what's going on and where we all stand in things. Hello, Chimmy listeners, again, and I'm sorry for not giving much notice that we're going to be here on live tonight, but it seems with recent events, we don't have a whole lot of choice. As I'm sure all of you are aware, we are currently sitting at a real situation where the political stance has been decided, and Donald Trump has been elected president, and the House has pretty much gone entirely red this time around, so we have a situation that has scared a lot of people. And with Donald Trump's campaign being almost entirely pushing towards the concept of fear, hate, segregation, and judgment, I think a lot of people who have done harm and wish harm feel empowered to do the wrong things, and the people who are the targets of those people are currently on the ropes, scared, and on the run. The downside that I've noticed the most, especially via social media, is many of you are by yourself. Many of you are stuck in a very frightening headspace. And I wanted to bring some people together who I think are very, very worthwhile to listen to. And everyone has a voice for you right now, just as strong as you have your own voice. No matter how scared you are, no matter how bad things feel, there's hope and there's community. Let me go ahead and introduce my guest. I'll go ahead with the people who are at the table in front of me. Across from me is Adrienne Selena. Say hello and tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hi, everybody. My name, as Christian said, is Adrienne Selena. I am a musician. I also teach music, and I coordinate musicians. So I do a lot of music-y things. As a side note, I have been diagnosed, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago with PTSD, and so fear is something that has become a pretty big part of 2 years ago I was diagnosed. That's right. But fear has been kind of always a big part. Fear and anxiety have always been a big part of my vocabulary, and I spent the past 2 or 3 years, whenever I was diagnosed, dealing with that. And so I understand very, very intently listening to people who are scared right now, and I understand what that feels like on a very deep level. So I'm here, and hello.
And Matt?
Hi, I'm Matthew Cartagena. I'm a musician from Pomona. Just like many people out there, I'm struggling to make a name for myself and, obtain success. And people are wondering, like, it's still a question if even now you could achieve success in this time period. And I want to lighten, still say that there's definitely still a possibility. My background, I'm a Filipino American, and we've had our fair share of dangerous presidents over the years. We currently have the Duterte as a president. He was, my uncle was from the same city as the current president of the Philippines.
Wow. And
my family, in addition to that, most of the older men in my family are Republicans. My uncle is mayor of Walnut and currently retired, or former mayor of Walnut, and him and my father are both lifelong Republicans, but oddly enough, they didn't support Trump, and my dad has his own views and I have mine, but my dad always gave me more of a very academic mindset towards it and more practical mindset towards it, and tries to get me out of the emotional stance, although it could be very like emotionally damaging to like so many people. So I hope giving my 2 cents could be of some help somehow. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ryan Omega, thank you for calling in and Skyping in with us. We're glad you took the time to sit with us. Go ahead and tell the audience who you are and what you do.
All right. My name is Ryan Omega. I am a producer, and I work in development and consulting a lot of geek-related projects. So I work with Bangzoom Entertainment, which does a lot of voice acting. I also am the line producer for the Labyrinth Masquerade Ball, which is held every year in LA. And I've also worked with places like Anime Expo, LACMA, Geek and Sundry, and I'm just kind of all over the geek map. For my background, I am Filipino. I am also gay. So there are two different things that I have to look at when considering Donald Trump. And while everybody else was running scared and they're all freaking out, listening to what's going on, I didn't freak out and I didn't get angry. I was just trying to figure out what happened in the miscommunication where many of us kind of thought and almost assumed that everything was going to be okay, that everything was going to go towards a very particular side. And we did not anticipate this coming. So I was just deconstructing, figuring out politically, what did we go wrong? Or at least what did we perceive? And then, what do we do going forward that we still hope in the years?
You're breaking up just ever so slightly there, Ryan.
Ryan, can you repeat that? You said, what did we do, where did we go wrong, and what do we do going forward? Is that what you said?
We seem to be having a slight audio disconnect with Ryan Omega. We'll go ahead and temporarily hop over. Anna, could you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, please?
Hi. So my name is Anna Maltese. I'm a former Simpsons animator. I now do freelance artwork, mostly for a science magazine. I also do stunts for Blizzard, for their video games. Most recent was World of Warcraft. And I teach archery and kung fu.
Wow.
I'm also an armchair historian. I'm a bit of a policy wonk, as far as anybody can be without being paid for it. I approach things very much from an American historical perspective. And boy, this is a time to be living for that.
Yeah,
I guess.
It definitely is. We're sitting in a time right now in which we should have been much further ahead than we are. I think many people out there will agree with me when I say we've had a history of extreme sexism, extreme racism. Now we have hate against people just because of what form of genitals you like to rub against. None of it has ever made sense, and none of it will continue to make sense as we move forward. But what's really disappointing is it feels like because of perspective, because of media, because of politics, whatever the root cause may be, we are backwards now. We should be far more understanding of each other, especially in this day of age where you go to a movie and there's always the gay best friend. There's interracial couples on TV. No matter what happens, we're being displayed an actual utopia world to the media we're supposed to represent. But then we go to the news and we are told that there's too much anger, there's too much reason not to trust such and such a group. Whatever division you land in, it shouldn't exist. There should not be a separation anymore. We are far past this. We're far better than this, yet we're not acting upon this as an entire nation, as an entire planet. Myself, I am a straight, white, light-haired, blue-eyed male. I should have no reason to fear. But the thing is I do, because everyone around me is different. Everyone in my life is different. There is no reason I can go around ignoring this. Last night, after the election, I saw nothing but pure fear in everyone I know. And then the moment that I knew that I couldn't just sit by and say, guys, it's going to be okay, I had to do more when one person who listens to my podcast, follows me on social media, finds someone's profile picture offensive because she was wearing a American striped hijab. and had to call her out saying, you better take that off because they're going to come gunning for you. The moment that crossed into my threshold, I have never talked politics on the show. I have never talked anything about hate and anything about this kind of fear on my show once. This has always been a lighthearted entertainment show about people who get drunk, cuss a lot, and talk about their genitals. And now we have crossed too many lines, and we have come too far in the hatred and the fear that is being given to us left and right each day. And no one deserves that. I have seen separation in families. I have seen separation in workplaces. I have seen separations that are caused by strict, pure arrogance and stupidity. There is no excuse for this. There is no reason for this. And I will not stand for it, and no one else should either.
So I feel like it's kind of scary how much history is repeating itself. And what I've been saying to everybody that I come across today, whether she's waxing my legs, hi, I got my legs waxed today because everyone needs to know that, or whether she's checking me out in the grocery store, whoever I came across today, I said, how are you? How are you doing? Smiled, and I said, in light of what happened last night, I just want to connect with every human being that I come across. And there was like a relief on their face, and they felt like, wow, hey, I'm not alone. I'm kind of terrified too right now, and it's cool that this stranger is talking to me. Great. And then we went on. And there is obviously a problem. And I kind of want to ask Anna, because my way of looking at this has been very historical. I was the nerd at 12 years old posting world news articles all over her walls and watching dictators come into power, watching them get taken down, watching good guys come into power and then watching them get taken down. And I kept watching this over and over happening all around the world, and I kind of just lost hope. So by the time I even came into voting age, I was kind of disenchanted. I wasn't completely invested in what was happening. And so, Anna, your perspective is from a historical background, and it makes me want to know, what do you think? I mean, obviously this question goes to the group, but I wanted to ask you first, what do you think on a historical perspective, just on the way that you see human behavior? I mean, you sound like someone who's so empowering just to know. What do you think we could do to incite the change that is needed right now, to incite movement, to incite some sort of positivity locally, nationwide, worldwide? Where are your thoughts on this right now?
First of all, that's highly flattering. Like I said, I'm an armchair historian, and policy. I'm not paid for this, so this is purely speculative.
Sure.
That means you're passionate enough about it to do it on your own time and free will. So I believe that makes you very, very, very worthwhile to talk to about this.
Yeah.
I second that.
Agreed.
The question is, can you repeat it again real quick? I'm sorry.
Just what do you think we could do right now to incite positive change for,
Okay.
How do we stay? My things is, I think we should be loving and staying knowledgeable. What do you think we could be doing?
All right. So what I'm going to say might actually not be expected. But here it goes. The pain right now is very real. Everybody is hurting really bad. We're essentially going through the early stages of grief,
of mourning,
because we're mourning something,
right?
Yeah.
And what I firmly believe is that as much as we want to tell each other, and I'm not going to go too dark here, don't worry.
Yeah, no problem.
But as much as we want to instinctively and reactively tell each other, no, everything's going to be okay, don't worry about it, chin up, try to be positive and try to be cheerful, I think that's the wrong thing to tell people who are in the early stages of grief.
Agreed.
I think what needs to happen is for a space to be allowed for people to scream into the void, basically, and get what we need out, while we can. I think that's going to be the healthiest thing, because until we do that, until we feel that whatever release, again, we're still in the early stages of this. We're not going to be able to move on if, we put on a fake mask of trying to, pretend we're feeling okay when we're not.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I think you're actually dead on right there. And one thing that's really important to note is no matter how long this stage of mourning goes on and whether or not we move on from it, period, we need to focus on, instead of trying to change the entire nation overnight and trying to change it within a span of a year or 4 years, we need to focus day by day on our community. We need to reevaluate who we can reach, what we can do, who we can make feel alive and healthy and happy and secure. If you know for a fact that 2 blocks down someone is going to have a hell of a time, you see their house being egged, you see them being tagged, you see them being harassed at a store, that is your responsibility to make sure that person is a part of your community now. Take care of them, make sure they feel loved, and encourage them to reach out as well. We have to start from the inside out this time. We can't put a shell around the entire nation, protect everyone at once. So if all of us really focus one by one, secure everyone we can within our community, within our reach, and let that community grow every day, then eventually we will win everything that we're trying to accomplish here. There is zero reason we can't make all of this happen. It will take time, and we will have to figure this out. But let's be realistic here. I will talk slightly political on this aspect. The majority of the votes that cause this to happen are of the baby boomer generation. And as a dear friend of mine just said last night, this is essentially one last final fuck you from their generation. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of hope with a follow-up to that. Well, that generation voted very hard to make anyone who is gay, anyone who is Muslim, Hispanic, anyone who is anti-wall, doesn't matter. Take a look at the 1820 votes. It was entirely in favor of those who are not bigots and hate mongers. Which means if we stick through this, if we show love, support, and care about every single one around us, there is no reason that we won't make it out of this as a better world, a better place.
Christian, Anna, Ryan, Matthew, everybody listening, I shared with Christian earlier that I would have to bow out early on this podcast, so this is going to be my time to say it was a pleasure listening to your voices, and I know we're just barely getting into this, but before I leave, I would love to tie in something that you, Christian, said and Anna said, and then I'm gone, which Anna said, we need a time to mourn. And I have a friend who is sitting here with us. He's our mutual friend, and he's not speaking on this podcast. And he said, I don't want to speak right now. I feel the way I feel right now, and I have nothing to say. And I think that is so important. I think it's so important that people do what is right for them right now. If part of your grieving process is to talk to each other and to analyze what went wrong, talk about plans for the future. If that's a part of what you need to do, then do that. If you need to not listen in on social media, not listen in on this podcast even, or, Christian, you said you need to take care of the self. It needs to start inside the communities, but I think it also needs to start in individual people. Individual people need to really kind of take care of themselves right now, so that we can move forward in whatever way we need to move forward when it is time to do so. And I will get to continue to listen, and I know I'm going to listen in on this again so that I get to hear what Matthew and Ryan said. But for now, I leave you guys with love and love and love and love. And
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian.
And that does make a really good point. It's very important for you to focus on your emotional and mental health right now.
Likewise, Anna. It was very nice to meet you. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining, Adrian.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to follow up with?
Yes, I think like everyone is striking a chord with being able to talk to people in the community. I think one of the biggest things you can do for a person is to acknowledge their pain. Just listen, just talk to them, acknowledge their pain.
Absolutely.
And also, don't put a time limit on how long that pain should be, or say you have to get over it by a certain amount of time so they can go on with your life. It's like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in grief. It doesn't work when someone passes. It doesn't work when someone breaks up. You have to allow someone to go through those emotions, sort those emotions, and come to a resolution so that they can understand where they are before they take the next step. Forcing them to be better, or telling them get over it, or telling them smile when you're not ready to smile. And I know many women told to smile when they're not in that mood is disingenuous. It doesn't work for scenarios like this, and it doesn't make people feel better. Feeling deeply what that grief is enables you to have a strange sort of power that I'm allowed to feel this emotion, and now I can use that emotion, whether it's sadness, anger, or anything, and propel that into action to be able to reach other people. And the other thing is to make sure that we're not just limited into the social media in terms of reaching out to people. Go and have dinner with someone. Go and have coffee with someone. Go and see someone's play. Hang out, have drinks, have sex. That's
beautiful.
Any of these things that require human contact with each other, because when we're behind these screens, we can misinterpret what texts mean. But you cannot misinterpret as often when you are within physical contact with someone, and we need so desperately human contact, because that is the first step to human community.
Ryan.
One by one.
Ryan, I like that you mentioned that there's really no time, there shouldn't be a time limit on grief, whether, it be a month or the rest of your life. Anna, I'd like to bring up this example to you, since I'd say we're both big history, facts, armchair historians. Anna, do you recall Queen Victoria and how she dealt with the grief when she lost Prince Albert? How she dealt with the loss of Prince Albert. She never really got over it, and she spent the rest of her life grieving her husband until she joined him in death, and she wore her funeral dress almost most of the remainder of her reign. So that's an example of just how lengthy grief can be, just for the length period. I mean, your take on that comparison, Anna.
Thank you for bringing that up. I did not know about her wearing her widow's weeds for the remainder of her time. I did not realize.
Was new to me as well.
I think it's instructive. I think it's always instructive to look to a model. So in this instance, it's not a precise example, because this is not how I choose to grieve. But Theodore Roosevelt, who was very nearly a contemporary of Queen Victoria, lost his first wife and his mother in the same day, in the same house, on Valentine's Day, and spent 3 days locked in a room pacing. After that 3 days was over, he emerged and he said, "I have to go out west. I have to get out of here." He left his baby daughter at home with his sister named Anna, and he went out west and became a cattle rancher. And it was in the loneliness of the Dakota Badlands that he found solace. And he met nature as a democratizing force. It gave a balm, a salve to his soul. And it was through that, and because of that, that we now have 235 million acres of protected wildlife. His one instance of inconsolable grief drove him to find his one true love of saving the wilderness and conserving it for future generations before it was forever despoiled and ruined. Now, that's not something that was conscious on his part at the time. He didn't realize he was doing it, but it was his own way of grieving. As an aside, he hardly ever mentioned his first wife's name again, and would completely shut out any and all mention of her from anybody. He closed off his heart after that to a large degree. I can't say that it was wrong for him to do. I am eternally grateful for the bounty that we have from that. So I think allowing people, as I think it seems we are all in agreement on, to process their grief in the time and place of their choosing, and not tone police them, for one, or tell them that they have to smile, is incredibly important, but it also may reap benefits for us that we cannot foresee. And that's what I would say to that.
I think that pretty much nails where we need to follow, what we need to try to work towards as well. We need to be able to work together and try and find out how to grieve as a community. But I think a combination of what you said and what Adrian was talking about earlier, finding that balance between making sure we've got time to take care of ourselves, such as doing the steps, following through those steps to grieve properly, as well as allowing those people, and if they can't, some people don't know how to grieve. Some people genuinely don't, whether it be from depression, whether it be from just they've never encountered something so harsh in their life. Doesn't matter. Let them find out. It is not our job to force it to happen. Be there for them. Be patient. Take your time so they can have that time. Ryan, we have a question for you on the Twitter, on a Twitter follower, asking, as a gay man, are you more afraid of police now as they pass by you? And if so, how should anyone respond to them and seeing them in public?
As a gay man, I've never actually had that much of a problem with police. Maybe if they're trailing me if I'm speeding on the freeway. It's
so
the
I'm sure
only
you do
time
as you're late to a lot of projects.
Yeah. Like, I have never had issues with the police. I'm very keenly aware it's been more of an African-American male problem that they've been dealing with in terms of, like, their interaction with the police. And, like, I went to Indiecade where I was playing the game Black Hoodie, where I was supposed to simulate being a black man wearing a black hoodie, and all I had to do was get to a store and buy, like, corn chips. That's what the game is. But as you are going along this path, you get stopped by police, and you have to figure out if you want to say something or if you want to keep that frustration in. And you have to make those decisions, and not everybody gets to the corn chip place. Like, some people get beaten on the way there. Some people get shot. And this is a game that I played at Indiecade where I kind of thought, wow, this is way unfair. This is, like, these mechanics are really, really screwed up, only to understand that this is what African-American men feel when dealing with the police. And I didn't know how to respond to that, but something like a game, like, showed me that is how that level of intersectionality can be understood.
Just the concept of corn chips in a hoodie, that being a life or death matter is, I think that's more signs than we need, that there's way too many imbalances right now socially, and taper that to any aspect of life you want. That's just beyond wrong.
Ryan,
Yeah.
I have a question for you as a fellow Filipino American male. Have you and this is a really puzzling thing for me, even as I get older, like later, like leaving my 20s into my 30s, conservatism and republicanism within a Filipino family, a large family. I know it's a hard thing to deal with when you're a Filipino American male and you seek an alternative lifestyle, whether it be being a homosexual or just a career in music or entertainment, or even being anything that's not a nurse or a doctor with a wife and two kids. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I don't know if it's too personal of a question for you, but, like, how have you, within your own family, how have you dealt with things like that? Because I've had so much trouble throughout, my later post-high school years, and in fact throughout my whole life, just the fact of I want a different kind of life, being a Filipino American male. Like, how have you dealt with that kind of thing, like, with your lifestyle and your career background?
I was very both lucky and not lucky. My dad came from the Philippines when he was 16 and he was actually known to beat up people for being gay. That was something that I had to live with. So coming out when living in the house was impossible. I would have been kicked out. On the other side, my mom is the reason why I'm a geek. So she bought the early Atari 800 and bought Miss Pac-Man, not for me, because I was 5. It was for her. And I got exposed to a lot of computer games and all of these things early on. And as I got older, even though I did things that were not considered conventional, I had a very supportive mom. But I did not have a supportive dad. When I first came out, the first person I told was my mom, and she said, "I love you no matter what." The second thing she said is, "You cannot tell your dad." As I got older, with my father's side of the family, they were devoutly religious. They were so religious that they had a vision of a child Jesus in their bathroom. They tore the house down to build a monastery.
The Santo
They
Nino.
are really, really religious.
It's the Santo Nino.
But what ended up happening with me is that I just kind of decided to live life my own way, and I found love in entertainment and video games and being a geek, and that's why I celebrate and do things now. And nowadays, like, my religious relatives brag about me, about, oh my God, he's a producer in LA, and he gets to do these things, and it's really, really cool. And the only thing I had to do was just stick to it, enjoy what I did, and not cut them out of my life. The moment I cut them out of my life, they have no way to experience, to grow, to form a relationship with, and it might be hard, and they might talk about me behind my back early on, but now, even if they did, I don't care, because when I meet them, they give me full hugs. They don't have to talk about, they're always concerned, making sure that I'm okay. And I think with Filipino parents and aunts and uncles, their conservatism and concern comes from a place of, oh my God, we don't want something bad to happen to him. We don't want him beat up. We don't want him, like, be in trouble.
Be
and
poor.
it doesn't come from a place of just making sure that, you know, they have, that they're all right with their religion or they're all right with their God. Sometimes it's just their version of they're worried, and it just expresses themselves as concerned that it didn't help me at first. But now that I'm older, I now understand where it is, and I'm all right with it. I'm at peace with it.
That's a big thing. You really hit the nail on the head, because you reaching out to somebody and teaching them is a big part of this healing process. You have to reach out to them and teach them and not cut them out, and that's usually the best way. If you just have to find a way to have them, make them be willing to learn. Yeah, that's for everybody. That applies to everybody, not just us Filipino males. It's reaching out to somebody and allowing them, teaching them, and not cutting them out, and just learning something from each other, you know, and being passionate about what you want to do.
Ryan, one thing that I want to point out about you is I know you personally, and we've worked together through Cypher before, and I mostly know you through a work environment, not so much socially, but ever since I've known you, everyone around you, including myself, has kind of more acknowledged you in your geeky sense. Your sexuality has hardly ever been the focus of your personality or your environment, to my knowledge, and to most of my social life and most of everyone within my world. That's pretty much how it just is.
It's the content of your character.
So hearing the way people interact, mostly through the media, and these people, like in Detroit, the horrible shit that's going down in Detroit right now, let's just be realistic, it's Detroit, that's what they do. Ryan, I've never once viewed you as Ryan the gay guy. I've viewed you as Ryan the Viscount or the Viceroy. You're the Viscount, right?
The Viscount. I am the Viscount.
Yes. The big geeky guy who's got his beautiful little entourage going around and playing his games, you know?
Rock star.
Right? So there's no excuse for anything. In fact, I think the gayest thing you've ever done is bring me a bunch of half-naked men, allowed me to forcefully take their clothes away from them and go pass out flyers to an event that we were doing.
Yes, but it worked.
Oh God, it worked. We got so many customers because of that. Which, by the way, if you're looking for someone with genius, that's all his idea. Sitting down with us now is Professor Elliott. A lot of you who are listening in know him from previous podcasts, as well as he and I share a show, Fantastic Feast and Where to Find Them. He's a regular on the show, and last night he and I shared most of our grief together throughout all of this. And I guess you'd like to share a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of frustration here. That's for sure. One thing that I have definitely kind of come to the conclusion of is that leading up to this moment, everything leading up to this moment has been focused on divisiveness, separating people. And I think that moving forward, and from what I've heard, I've been listening in on the way here, and from what I've heard from you guys, you agree that the way to move forward is community. It is bringing people together. It is trying to connect together. I mean, you look at some of the things that people are worried about, and I think that the biggest thing that we can do is stand strong together and be there for each other. Son was just recently telling me earlier today that apparently there are certain people who have been elected who want to make homosexuality illegal, period, not just marriage. And I say that cannot happen if we are standing together as a community, as family.
Honest to God,
friends.
how are you going to enforce that? If I have three people next to me who are gay, which one of us are you going to arrest? Where is your test? Are you going to dangle a bunch of dildos in front of us and see which one of us lifts our foot off the ground?
Right. Here's the thing about that, though. If I may interject,
of course,
by all means.
The wish list is going to be. We can't predict what'll happen, but the wish list is probably going to be different from the policy enactment, which isn't a much of a comfort. I mean, honestly, they have everything. They have the Senate, they have the presidency, they have the Supreme Court, the House, and the Circuit Court. So that reality has to be acknowledged before I say what I'm going to say.
Correct. I think it's important to make sure everyone grasps that.
The wish list alone is it is a huge source of fear. Whether or not anybody would be able to enact a policy which arrests someone for being gay in 2016 America is not something that we can necessarily predict. It's highly unlikely. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But the fact that there was a wish expressed for that is something. That's significant.
And that's where the fear originates.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh
yeah, I just said, and that's definitely where the fear originates.
Right.
Anna, a lot of people are making a lot of political. Some people who are knowledgeable about comparing this to previous elections. A lot of people are comparing this to the 2001, where Al Gore lost to George W. Bush, and a lot of the ways people are just brushing it off is like, oh, if we could survive 4 years of George W. Bush, we could survive 4 years of Donald Trump, and it's a little it's to me just
Bush didn't have the entirety of the House, the Senate, and everything.
Exactly. And this isn't really quite the same animal as that was. Like, what's your take on people who usually brush it off using that point of view?
So.
Yeah.
My take on that is, yes, we lived through it. We did. You and I, right here. Not everybody did.
Correct.
We all made it through. Well, no, not all of us did, and the ones who did not emerge unscathed. That's the thing that isn't said.
I think something that needs to be remembered is the amount of fear and rage against the Muslim community during that era, and if the past always repeats itself, and that is something that could potentially repeat itself. We got to make sure that doesn't happen. That is ridiculous. I don't care what community anyone is from.
So it is instructive to go back to that point, I think, because after 9/11, there was a Muslim registry made. I don't know if you all remember this,
right?
Yep.
But they had Ashcroft came out with a registry. You had Tom Ridge coming out with his color chart, and there was open talk during Trump's campaign of creating another registry.
Right.
The best. I mean, we're kind of in Terra Nova at this point. We've been here before, but this is an extreme. This is a much more extreme point.
Right.
Things are being normalized right now that are incredibly bad. White supremacism
and
Nazism, and I think the best response to that. I don't know the individuals who are saying that. I would normally tailor my response to an individual if it was somebody doing that. But in general, as a generic answer, I would simply say, yes, the country is still standing. That isn't necessarily the end-all and be-all of what we should be expecting. The Obama coalition was supposed to break us past this after 2012. Romney won with, 43% of the white male vote, and he lost the presidency. It was all of our collective understanding that from that point forward, the voices of minorities and women and gay folk would be prevailing, and this is why it comes as a shock that the outcome was as it was. It'll take several days for the data to be collated and the numbers to be crunched as to why the polls and the poll aggregates were so wrong. We were so wrong. But in the meantime, that would be my response. I will say, if I may, one silver lining before last night. One silver lining to the Trump campaign dredging up the ugliness of the underside of America with the hot mic take and Billy Bush and grabbing them by the pussy, was that it started a national conversation about sexual assault. And a lot of women were posting. We were all posting about the first time it happened to us. When I was 11, I was on roller skates. A car full of guys came around the corner and trapped me by circling me over and over and over. I simply was trying to not get run over while they were circling me and leaning out. And these were grown men threatening the life of an 11-year-old girl. And the reaction that I saw was indescribable and indescribably cheering, because for the first time in my memory, we were having a national conversation about this. This was like writ large. Right. And every single one of the men in my social media circles immediately responded for the first time ever by saying, "Holy shit, I had no idea it was this bad. I had no idea you all had this happen. What can I do?" Instead of offering advice to us or solutions to us based purely in well-meaning and well-intentioned camaraderie, they sat back and they asked what they could do, and they listened. And if you've never been in that situation before and somebody does that to you, when they make you feel like you have a seat at the table for the first time, it's heady. It's indescribable, and I am so grateful to every single one of them who reached out and asked, what can we do to improve these things that are happening? That's what I have in response.
Right, and you know what? That's what true empathy and community really comes down to. It's not I'm going to tell you what I think you should do. It's not I'm going to give you advice on how you should do things or how you should approach things. It's right now things are in pain, things are messed up, And we need to come together and listen to each other. Say, how do you think I can help you? How can we help each other as a community? We need to ask each other that question. It's not a matter of prescribing a solution. It's a matter of asking each other what we need.
A few things that have to be drastically understood and drastically accepted are that not everyone who is afraid right now is of a different community. Everyone has their inner demons, their inner fears, their inner frights. And no matter what you do, there's no way around it. Wow, bumped the table, Elliot. This is kind of one of those events that brings it out of all of us. That being said, this is a little tough. Only specific people in my direct community understand this, but throughout my upbringing, I switched over from my grandparents to my father. And upbringing, my father had a plan for me, and it was not to have free will, to be able to do my own job, to have a career. I wanted to draw comics. I wanted to write comic books. I wanted to be the next guy who writes the Spider-Man's adventure in Marvel Comics. And my father wanted me to work in golf course construction and play golf. And he would take away a lot of my art supplies. He would burn my comics after he's the one who bought and collected them for me. I got into an art school and stuff during between my 5th and 6th years, and between 5th grade and 6th grade. And I remember that he pulled me out of the bathroom as I was urinating, shoved me on the ground, and stood with both feet on my chest, and made me tap out and basically admit that I will not go to that. I will stop asking him by force. And he continuously, throughout my youth and my teenage years, if I had a question that made him feel inferior, if he didn't have the answer, if I had a drive, if I created something that wasn't in line with his goals and his desires, that would not disturb him or disqualify his opinion of what is good and wrong, it was beaten out of me very regularly. And I remember the first day that I had enough. It was because I made a new friend in high school, and I wasn't supposed to have those. And I let a name slip. He asked, "Who's that?" And I said, "Marcus. Marcus is my friend in school. We walk home together, and then sometimes we talk about, what was it? We used to talk about Digimon. That's what it was. It was Digimon and Zords. And my dad grabbed me by the shirt, put me against the oven, and punched the oven with a mug in hand, breaking both the mug in his fist and the thermal glass on the outside. And I'll never forget what it feels like to have that thermal glass continuously pop around me, because it keeps cracking after it breaks. And I was so distracted by that popping, I didn't realize that mug was coming back at me. And I have a scar on the side of my head above my ear, in which my father manually and forcefully cut me, telling me that I need to stop because those people are going to take me away from what I'm supposed to do. This was a fear driven into me, and I stood up against that fear. I stood up against that fear from then on. I never allowed that fear to win. I was taught early. I was lucky. I had my grandfather who taught me to stand against that, not by violence, not by meeting them at their level, by enduring, by being compassionate, and understanding that my father had a very brutal upbringing. Not everyone who does wrong is in the wrong because of being evil or impure or because they're dark. Some people do not know. Some people were raised wrong. Some people were educated wrong. Some people have a lack of education. In order to endure this, we will need to endure the fact that these people don't know right or wrong sometimes. Those that do know right or wrong and continue down those paths will never be able to do anything for them. We'll definitely never be able to do for the people who aren't able to understand either. Generationally speaking, we have more youth, we have more open-mindedness at a younger age than we ever have, I think, in this country's history. I hate to say, please, everyone, just wait it out. But as long as we're waiting it out together, I think it's something that we can definitely do. But we can't wait it out quietly. We're not going to go sit in a corner. We're not going to sit underground. There is nothing to gain by sitting in fear in a box.
Right. We have to rise up together.
This is one of the main things that sets us apart from the generation that saw the Bush win 2000, is that then the internet wasn't as prevalent, and communication isn't as instantaneous as it is now. Like, Anna, if you see this comparison, like the things that make our timeline a little bit different from 2000 is the communication, the fact that we're even doing this live stream right now. In 2000, there was a radio show, but there wasn't really anything like this on a local level.
That point right there, let's stop and focus on that for a second. We live in a world that is so thoroughly connected, and that's what's been used against us. We've had media try to push a election campaign that is supposed to divide, that is supposed to separate, that is supposed to make people afraid in separate groups, and make the other group. For the first time
in a long time, more votes were probably cast as I'm voting against, as opposed to I'm voting for.
Yeah.
It was a vote out of fear.
Now, if we all stay in our communities directly in here, as well as make sure the world knows we're all communities, the world needs to know we have each other's backs. The world needs to know that we're all supporting each other. Let's not just focus strictly on the United States. Let's stop and think. We have other nations watching us right now. Last night I watched more posts from around the world saying, "We're with you, America, we're with you." It's almost as if we got attacked all over again. The world sees what's going on. The world sees how wrong this is. But
if I may.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, we have a reach. We have a reach now that we've never had before. And I don't think it's understood by those who oppose who we all are and who we stand for and what we stand for. They don't understand. We have the same tool they do. They aren't superior.
So, getting back to the question I was asked by, is it Adrian?
Oh, Matthew. Oh, wait.
Earlier,
sorry.
yes, Adrian.
Oh, earlier. Okay.
Yeah, Adrian was here earlier, yes.
The question was asked about the comparison between now and the 2000 election.
Oh, that was me.
And, okay, hi. So
that was Adrian 2.0.
The point that was made, if I remember, was the fact that we didn't have as instantaneous of social contact back then, which is absolutely true.
We had AOL.
Social media wasn't as much, there, and thus, we didn't have as much a way to communicate. I'm going to be a little bit of, having been a woman on the internet. I'm going to maybe interject that point of view here for a second and say that while the internet is a great democratizing force in many ways, the problem is that there are no Walter Cronkites of the internet, essentially. There are no gatekeepers for fact-checking and critical thinking. We do have Snopes. We do have Pulitzer Prize-winning PolitiFact. We do have factcheck.org. But even amongst highly educated people, confirmation bias is very powerful. You have a lot of people, even among my fellow liberals, who, because Snopes will disagree with something that they say, will then slag Snopes up and down, and then they will go find other websites which confirm their point of view on this, and they'll seek them out and they'll listen to them. And because the internet is what it is, and it is a great democratizing force, you can find nearly any niche community that you want to find that will burnish your point of view to the exclusion of others. And so absolutely. While, yes, it is a great communication, it is a wonderful way for individuals to connect with other individuals. It has been instrumental in showing the world the realities that people of color face at the hands of police and the brutality that ensues. While it has shown a spotlight on real issues, but Twitter was instrumental in the Green Revolution in Iran.
Right.
It also there is also a danger that comes along with that, of being able to find a niche that confirms your biases and stay there. And I think something that needs to develop is a way for people to come together and acknowledge certain facts. Pre-2000, the Republican Party brought about the Clean Air Act under the first President Bush.
Yeah.
Nixon gave us the EPA. So at one point, Republicans were on board with the fact that climate change was occurring. They had different ideas about how to go about it, but we all agreed on the same facts. We all agreed on the same terrain that we were all on. And now we have, I forget his name, Myral something, who is a climate change skeptic who is looking like he's going to head the EPA.
Right.
So, as far as the internet, well, it is great for communication. I loved meeting you all here. At the same time, we have Reddit. So the challenge will be to find a way for us all to get back on track, agreeing on what the challenges are. And right now, that's going to be somewhat difficult when it comes to reaching across the aisle.
There's a dramatic amount of misinformation, as well as people whose opinionated pushes are too strong to truly accept that we have all the answers on the internet. There's too many directions, too many issues. Professor, you had something to say?
Yeah, the internet has exponentially increased all sides of things. So it has not only exponentially increased our interconnectivity and our ability to find facts, but it's also increased our ability to find an echo chamber. And it's really important to recognize that all of those things have increased. It's both a positive and a negative, but I think that in the end, what it's done is it's created extremes. I don't know how to address that problem.
Well, let me inject on that concept then. Take any topic on the internet, take any topic in real life. You can take anything to an extreme, and it could do harm to a lot of people or a lot of harm to yourself. I don't care if it's your love for cheese or your hatred for a political candidate. If you take something too far, one way or the other, everything in life is on a slider. You have a balance to always maintain. If you're going to push a little harder one way, there will be a consequence. You push too hard the opposite direction, there's an even worse consequence. You will always have to maintain your focus on what you're doing. That being said, make sure when you go out, you are not finding someone of a different opinion and attacking them, be it verbal, physical, doesn't matter. We have to be the generation that is bigger and better, with the brighter minds, bigger hearts. We have to be open-minded, as we already are. We can't close our minds because we're afraid. We can't close our minds because we're hurt. We have to be the generation that has absolute resolve to do the right thing for everyone. We have to be unrelenting in driving hope forward and making sure no one has a chance to do wrong permanently. We cannot go assaulting the newly elected president. We cannot go insulting people who voted for him. We have to just go ahead, batten down our hatches, and say, you have your opinions. We have ours. That does not make you better than me. That does not make me better than you. That makes me, you. Leave me out of your life. Watch over each other. Do not go on the offensive. You will do no one any good, especially yourself.
Did you say insulting or assaulting the new president?
Both.
Both would be good.
If you insult him, he goes on the offense. That's who he is. He's the big orange dummy.
Right. Here's the thing. I think we are absolutely okay to insult the new president. I don't care how much somebody likes him or anything. There is still governmentally protected free speech in this country, and I think absolutely if it's part of processing what has happened, I think insulting the orange-faced shit gibbon is absolutely a-okay.
One thing I was
That's
entertained
going to
is
be happening a lot in comedy shows, by the way.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
and comics. It's historical to have comic strips that insult our current acting presidents and leaders. Last night, Elliot, you and I were interacting with someone online, and the conversation came up of the monsters that eat the Oompa Loompas in the Willy Wonka. You don't recall this? You're the one that even looked them up and found their names.
Wasn't that Jimmy? Maybe that was Jimmy.
Jimmy brought it up, yes, but I would have sworn, Elliot, you and
Jimmy.
I were in the
I was
conversation
not involved
together.
in that conversation.
Oh, well, Elliot,
again.
just see yourself out of here.
Anna, like you said, it's also our responsibility to hold up the right of the other side our responsibility to hold up the right of the other side to let them say what they want, because it is government protected free speech, no matter like which way we look at it, even if it's directed against us, whether it's us insulting the president or a neo-Nazi, spouting his whole shtick agenda.
Although it's very important to note to everyone listening, it is illegal to threaten the president. Insult him all you want, please, by all means, but you will be arrested if you threaten the president.
That is a fact.
That being said, okay,
I've seen that happen a few times on my Twitter feed already, and I just want to say you guys need to stop that because you're putting yourself in danger.
Ryan?
There is something that I do want to say about empathy, and this is probably one of the harder things in terms of having empathy for people like or having empathy for Trump supporters. Because, of all of my friends who are liberal, when asked to describe the Trump supporter, the first thing they tell me is, oh, they're stupid, and they're racist, and they're sexist, and they categorize half of the population that way. And the biggest problem with doing that is that when you start doing this on Facebook and you start unfriending people, then you'll have everyone that does think just like you, just like, the echo chamber was mentioned earlier. But the harder part is that when you cut those people out, they also have no ability to even change their mind.
Right. You just increased the echo chamber on both sides.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing as well is, talking to some of the Trump supporters, like before this election happened, and watching some of the coverage, and it was hard to watch, but I made myself watch it. And the first thing that I saw in terms of the Trump supporters was most of them were fearful. They were scared. They were in places where they were in rural communities, and they have, no other opportunities for education, and the only thing they know is their jobs are going overseas, and the only person appealing to them or not treating them like shit seemed for them to be Trump, because everyone else seemed to be catering to, in their head, people who were not like them. And it is very hard. And while it is very hard to have empathy for people who we automatically focus in our head as an ist, like sexist, racist, homophobic, or anything like that, in the end, we are all scared about the same things. We are all fearful about the same things. We all want the same things. We just want it a different way. Unfortunately, the way the media and this election has provided it to us, it always felt like it's either this demon or that dark fairy. It has to be one of these things that we have to choose. And you can't do both. You cannot sympathize with the other. Sympathizing is if you sympathize with someone else, you're a traitor. You're disloyal. You're unfaithful to your tribe. And we often feel that way. Especially millennials. Like, millennials always feel like they are trying to find their tribe so hard, because everything is so hard. And being told that they're entitled is not fair. They just want the same thing what their parents have. Right. But sometimes to protect that tribe, they want to cast other people out by saying, you're not like me, you're going to attack me. Unfortunately, all those tribes want the same thing. And the hardest part is knowing that we do have to get together. We do have to come together, because regardless of what you feel, we can't do this alone. If we want to present ourselves unified to the world stage, we have to find a compromise. We have to find things that we love together. And it doesn't have to be politics. It could be things like games. It could be things like geekery. It could be things like your favorite show. There are many communities where we can bond together. And that's what the wonderful thing about where we are in entertainment. There are things that we can't love together.
Yeah. The biggest thing here is what led us here. The fear that came out of this came from the divisiveness. It came from a divide that was created. This election brought us through division, and in order to overcome that fear, we have to remove that division. We have to remove the divide between us. And in order to do that, we need empathy for both sides.
Well, one thing about this country is it's always been a country divided by tribalism, whether it be by state, by county. Let's look at football teams, for instance. We have football teams where people suddenly are able to get in fist fights, throw riots, and have huge disasters based strictly on which team wins or loses. We're a nation that's trained to be a tribalized group. So in doing so, basically what we need to do is realize we're already separated. We're already trained to do this. We kind of have to retrain ourselves to be more open, allow more people in, even those who oppose our positions. We have to make sure that we can't kill it overnight. We never will kill it, because let's be realistic. Ryan, you said it yourself. There are people who like certain TV shows and wind up forming cliques and groups because of that. That itself becomes its own little tribalized separation. What we need to do is make sure that tribalized group never is against another tribalized group. Matt?
I would interject here real quick.
Go for it.
To get back to a couple of things that you said, Ryan. I would be careful about urging empathy toward Trump supporters right now, toward, for instance, people of color, who, on the breakdown of the demographics, just to take one example, came out 94-4 against. This election was not, and I realize that in a lot of bubbles and in the dominant narrative, this election was not voting against Trump only. There were a lot of people who dearly loved Hillary Clinton. This was not necessary. This was not for everybody a choice between two evils. I know that a lot of people in my particular liberal bubble think it was. But if you go outside and you look at the demographics of Latino voters, Latina voters, black men, black women, it tells a very different story. And that story is based on the history of the interactions that the Clintons have had for decades with the black community. It's not for nothing that he has an office in Harlem. Side
That's actually
note,
very
I
correct.
animated Bill Clinton on The Simpsons, by the way. So
That's actually pretty cool
I would
to me.
just be careful with being aware that there has been a lot of sentiment expressed on by black activists, and I'm not speaking for black activists. I would like to say this right now.
Understood.
I am not the white splainer. I will always try not to be, but there is a lot of anger out there when that they have expressed, that many people have expressed, at being told to have empathy for Trump supporters or people, racists on the right, or people who might not seem racist but who voted one in, because at one point the distinction, it becomes a difference without a distinction, really. So to be told, well, you have to have empathy, to be told that you have to have empathy for someone who voted somebody in who supported stop and frisk or any of the innumerable other things that he said, has been hurting people, because they come from, and I'm sure you are quite familiar with this, being that you are a person of color and gay. They come from demographics which have never historically had a leg up, and the anger that the right has had from the election of Obama is very significant. I mean, I don't know if you remember that in incident with McCain and the woman at his rally who was like, I'm afraid of Obama because he's an Arab. And, he had to talk her down. He was booed for that. So this is, this is just something to consider going forward. There are real, we are all one population. It's true. And we do have to find a way forward together. But at the same time, the concerns that people of color have are very different from the concerns that white people have.
And I'd like to jump in for a second there. What you're saying is absolutely correct, and I think that ties in heavily to what we've been talking about. Allow people and allow groups their time to mourn, but not only mourn, but we have to learn to adapt. And it's not just like us as anything in general. It's the black community, the Filipino community, the gay community have to have time to adapt, understand, and rethink things themselves. There's a lot of anger for a lot of reasons, and it's all directed for a lot of reasons. Everyone has their goals and their needs in mind when they vote. So while Professor is correct that this is probably the most voted against election, that doesn't mean everyone was that person.
Correct. That didn't mean to imply that.
But I think Anna, you did hit the nail right there perfectly. Communities do need to watch out for each other, but there are already strong communities formed who have been under assault, be it politically, publicly, literally, doesn't matter. So thank you for bringing that up. That actually is a really strong point, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Christian, one community I'd say has been like the most, interesting and one to learn from as a unique wild card and background and viewpoint, I'd say is probably the up and coming Asian community. Since more, as we see it currently, more and more Chinese Americans, more and more Chinese are coming to the United States, and they don't really have quite the same history that a lot of the other groups have, like, say, the black community or the Hispanic community, and they have their reasons. And then you also talked about bubbles. Mm-hmm. The Chinese community in Southern California, some of them have a lot of them, there are of course exceptions, but a lot of them have stayed in a bubble. So some have stayed in the Asian bubble since, I'd say, like, even the 90s, and some remain in that bubble with their own views and their own concerns, and that's just another example of I'm trying to think of what point I'm trying to get at, but it
happens to us all the time.
Yeah, but it's just using them like as just one not to count out, because we've talked about black, we've talked about white, we've talked about Latino, our own ethnicity, but that I'd say they're like, and one that's especially interesting, I'll say interesting, is the Asian Trump supporter. They probably have the most interesting outlook. I'll just say interesting for now, because I don't want to antagonize or protagonize either way. But it's definitely a viewpoint to look at, because it doesn't come from their support of Trump doesn't really come from a whole us against them mentality, but it also doesn't come against them either, against her mentality, or it just comes from somewhere different. I'd say
there's a lot of different groups in a lot of different positions and a lot of different support.
Exactly.
And it's really difficult to say it's us versus them, even though leading up to the election, that's what we've been told. It's us versus them. And it's very important to keep that in mind.
One thing to point out before we go too further: no one here is speaking for the whole of all the communities.
Exactly.
This is a perspective conversation. These are people who all have had our fair share of heartbreak in the last 48 hours and over the last period of our lives. But one thing that I'm really surprised about this year is I'm blown away that the election has gone this far, this direction, because this is the same year, as you pointed out, the Asian community. This is the first year I've looked at mostly online, but in general, people have been making a big push about how there's a lot of white actors being pushed towards non-white roles. And there's a huge acknowledgement to how many white actors take Asian roles and how Asians are not getting leads as much. And the fact that this is the year that becomes public. And now we are sitting in the situation we are politically. It's heartbreaking is completely side. It's mind-boggling to me.
Comes from more of the thing with just the Asians in the us Asians in the entertainment industry in general, and like me and Ryan discussed earlier, how our families kind of push us towards the jobs that have been traditional to our ethnic group. You know, it often comes down to when people talk about stereotypes, how you know the racial stereotypes that people have used on other people, like, you know, us Filipinos being mostly nurses, Indians mostly working at 7-Eleven or being taxi drivers, the people that have used those, you know, racial stereotypes and hate racist what I'm trying to think the word I don't know, caricatures, you know, that kind of thing, you know, or a black person being
a lot of entertainment industry, a lot of entertainment groups use cookie cutter type creation whenever they take someone of race.
Yeah, a black person being a rapper, basketball player, white man being a businessman, you know, it goes on and on.
Yep. Which, I mean, let's be
also
realistic.
an issue when it comes to the entertainment industry. So with one of the companies that I work with, one of the things that I do is I vet projects for investment. So one of the interesting things that I have learned in regards to this, one of the first things that when we think about who gets cast into movies, the biggest thing that people are not aware of is that there's an invisible person casting all of these things, and that's usually the money of the producer, of the investors who are actually putting their money into like these studio films. And usually they come with conditions. They will say, well, we want an A-list actor. We want all of these things to ensure that we get our money back plus profit. So when you think about the entertainment industry or show business, the important part here is the business part. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of very well-known Asians in America that can carry a film yet. We should be developing them, especially since we have like markets like China and Asia, which are like 60% of the film movie-going population, where we have to where eventually you're going to see a lot more storylines that cater to Asian groups because they know that those audiences will be watching. At the same time, which is really, really weird, in America we're more used to the diversity of things and making sure that we embrace diversity. But in places like Japan and China, and this might sound really strange to say, where they're really homogenous, they don't care as much about that representation. And that sounds really, really weird. They want to know that they're part of the world, but they don't have to be the forefront of that world. And when I found that, I'm like, really? How does that happen? I mean, don't you want Chinese in your Chinese films? And they said, we want everyone to watch it. And they're willing to get someone who's name branded in over their own representation. I'm like, okay, we have to fix that.
Well,
because
we definitely have to fix that, and we do have a lot of quality, hard, strong entertainers up and coming, and I'm sure we're going to see plenty of that in the future.
I think the general point I was trying. I think the general point I was thinking of getting at was we're seeing a lot of us different ethnicities breaking out of type, basically us breaking into different professions that we've been conditioned to accept, like seeing the Italian guy at the butcher shop or the Indian guy at the taxi. You know, we're seeing different people doing different things.
And the music industry in general is where I see the most. I'm seeing more ethnicities in the music industry playing different genres of music than I've ever seen in my entire life, and I think that's beautiful to see. That being said, that means we have more creative people coming forth, and that kind of comes to where I really want to push a lot of people right now. If you have a talent that you can draw attention to, if you're an artist, if you draw, if you paint, if you write, if you create music, whatever you do, create something that takes that from the inside and put that out. That's a very healthy aspect to. There's a healthy aspect of healing to that itself, and also healing for the community. I think art and creativity is one of the best tools we will ever have against what we're dealing with. And I'm not talking about propaganda. I'm not talking about necessarily creating a naked statue of Donald Trump and put it in Times Square, which is fucking hilarious. I'm not going to lie. I really said I couldn't get that thing. What I'm talking about is...
Tell us how you're feeling.
Tell us how you're feeling through your art. Create what is hurting you. Create what you want to happen. Show us the perfect future in your art. Show us your inner pain through your art. Whatever it is, use your talents. I don't care if you're really good at making mashed potato sculptures. I'll go take a look at that shit.
If you want to make change in art, it has to come from you. Don't look to the studios to make that change.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
With you.
This is probably the best advice you could ever hear. Don't look to another group to tell you what your art is. Don't look for any other thing because all you're doing at that point is you're doing exactly what is happening in the political spectrum. An outside force is trying to tell you what to do there. Why would you have an outside force tell you to do with what your art is, what your talent is? So use that aspect in everything you do. And if you're not an artist, support an artist. Stand by them.
Community. Again,
absolutely.
It always goes back.
It always goes back to that community.
I remember Professor Elliott, when he and I first got knowing each other early on, he had his one of his art exhibits that I was really happy to go to, and it was beautiful. And people were coming up who had no idea what he did, and there was a lot of people who really didn't have their own talents, but they came to be there with him. It became a community. People hung out, a big event, and people still to this day are now learning their own talents. I know myself around that same time, I was just some asshole who literally got drunk, gained weight, and just talked into a microphone, used foul language, talked about bad things. Now I'm in front of cameras. I'm behind cameras. I've learned I'm a director, a producer. You got to find your niche. Whether it's being the best Uber driver, whatever it is, just go find something for you. You're not going to solve anything by forcing it. You're not going to go yell at anything. Let's be realistic. And a great point was given to us in the chat here just recently. We have free speech. Whether there's an attempt at silencing us through censorship in the future may or may not be a thing coming up. Doesn't matter. We have it now. But what that means is that freedom of speech goes both ways. If you say something out loud, it's going to have repercussions. Be aware of that. Do not be offended that they're offended. That goes for your art, that goes for what you say, and that just in general goes for you as a personality.
Stand up for yourself, stand up for others.
Your community. I think that is the key word for tonight.
There's a good saying that's been going around because of certain internet memes. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from the consequences of that speech.
Absolutely.
It's also instructive to remember that freedom of speech is specifically... going forward, it's a protection from the government on you. If you are criticized, if you say something racist or sexist or anything, and you get shit for it, that is contrary to what some people think. That is not an infringement of your free speech rights. That is the response that you garner.
And as much as we hate to admit it, many websites are private and can remove your comments, and they are allowed to do that.
Just last week, I got a picture taken off of Facebook, and let's be realistic. You can't fight them all the time. You can't fight what's going to be done. Censorship is real in private groups like that. So just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your audience, and don't be overly sensitive to their response. Anyone else have any follow-ups? Because we are running short on time here.
I wanted to switch off with Alex, so
you wanted to give Alex?
Yeah, I feel bad.
Go ahead and go see if he's got anything else, and we'll go ahead and keep things moving along here.
Yeah.
We have an additional creator. Alex Weitzman is a voice actor, and he recently helped with the protest, or not the protest. It was the protest with SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah.
And last night he was very emotional, and also part of the Jewish community. He looked at me in the eye and he said that these are people who speak out directly against myself as a person. And when that happened, I think I was pretty much taken back. Are you doing okay over there? Just knock. Be a human. It's okay. Anyways, Elliot, did you have anything to follow up with?
again, I want to focus on that word of community. And
Community, yeah.
Would you like to join in, Alex?
Do you have any final words to say before we wrap up?
Any commentary that you'd like to say? We've been
I feel bad I've been
focusing.
taking up your time.
We've been focusing kind of on how leading up to this has been very divisive, and that leading on from here, we need to be empathetic and focus on community the most. Just wondering if you had any thoughts leading up on the end here of the podcast.
Well, apologies to the audience. This is obviously live, so a few things are a little out of order. Trust me.
Don't worry, we'll fix it in post.
Yes.
Wow, those words
fair
sound
enough,
so
fair
familiar.
Hi, everyone. This is Alex Weitzman.
Hi, Alex Weitzman.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, my name is Alex Weitzman, and I'm an asshole.
Not all the time.
Anyways.
In terms of personal thoughts, I'll say this, and and my apologies if any of these sentiments have already been expressed. I've been mostly just kind of going off on my own little journey in my room while you guys have been having the podcast. I will say I think there's purpose and significance to a unified American community. I think that there's always going to be a place and an importance for us to reach across the ideological divide, no matter how large the chasm may seem. But the one thing I will say is I can't have a conversation with someone who doesn't want to have a conversation with me. I pride myself on the ability to connect and listen with people who may be politically very, very different from me, and I've had very positive, consistent conversations with any number of people who are very different, to the point that they've counted me amongst the only liberal friend that they'll have. But this election was a standing message from a very significant segment of the conservative America saying we don't want to have a conversation with liberals anymore. We have made a pact with our guy. Our guy says we can do this entirely on our own. And that pact means that they don't want to hear from us for a while. They would like to not have us talk to them. And that's not going to change until that pact gets broken. And the breaking of that pact will, of course, be from President-elect Donald Trump, because his policies will fail them, because we've already seen those policies in action and we already know what happens to them. That's why they're also disenfranchised in the first place. So basically, once that's over, once they're willing to talk again, I'm ready to have that conversation, but not until then.
As far as what people can do in the meantime, the people who are currently afraid, the people who are outside of their comfort zone because of the recent events, what would you say to them?
I would say everybody feels so alone right now. You need to make sure that nobody feels like they have nowhere to go. And everybody knows somebody who's really, really scared. They're going to have outrage. Some of them have more outrage than they can handle right now, and you have to let them have it, because you can't tell them to calm down. That's not fair. I think you have to just let people work through what they're working through and have them know that you are always going to be there to support them and help them.
Back to that key word of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot, do you have any final words you would say to people?
I've said my final words. Community. Reach out to each other. Support each other.
Ryan?
Educate yourself about the political process. Just because someone says something sounds true on the internet, make sure that you understand how government works so that you are empowered and not afraid.
I think that's been a big weakness this go around, and I think that that's key right there. We live in a world where education is controlled by a group, or at least attempted to be controlled by various groups and organizations, be it smaller groups, larger groups, doesn't matter. The fact is, you still have the ability to educate yourself. Just be aware of where you're educating yourself. Be aware of whether or not your education that you're pursuing is accurate.
It's difficult, but possible to find where the biases are coming from.
And it's a lot of work, but it is well worth it, believe me.
There are ways to verify almost every bit of information, possibly with quotes around it or not, that you run into.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Anna, do you have any final words you'd like to say to the audience?
Boy, I have a lot of words. But
Take those words, string them together into sentences, paragraphs.
most of them are going to be screaming into the void as soon as this is over, because my grief process is going to be very loud and very, very long.
So keywords get in her way.
So, boy, I guess my final thought would be, don't try to tell somebody, just let people go through their stages of grief as they need to. Listen to marginalized groups when they tell you what's happening. And be there for each other as best we can by listening and not trying to offer solutions, but right away, but just listening.
Definitely worthwhile to keep.
Leaving.
Go ahead.
Leaving is a big.
Try that one more time. You broke up just ever so slightly. Anna?
Hello?
What'd you say?
You broke up ever so slightly there at the last little bit.
Oh, sorry. Where did I break up at?
Just the last sentence.
Just basically listen and also believe.
Believe.
When they tell you.
Yeah, just because your perspective is not theirs doesn't mean that they're wrong. That's definitely something to take into consideration. If they say something is hurting them, if they say something is angering them, that doesn't mean it's your job to diffuse that anger or that hurt. Let them feel it. Let them go through it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's sadly all the time we actually have. Again, audience, I know that this is absolutely the furthest stretch from what a Chimmy Pachango Superstar podcast is ever about. But I feel it's necessary. And if we have the ability to reach others, let's not neglect it. This will not become the new norm. This will not become a violent and aggressive change in format. And I will go continuously interviewing random people and calling them bad names. But
and usually me.
Usually
actually.
you.
Usually me.
By the way, we have another exorcism coming for you, by the way. Expect that.
You tried that once. It didn't work.
I got new ideas. But if I have any final words to say, if not your community, if not your belief system, if not your structure, faith, whatever it is, focus strictly on the concept of this is our chance. This is our chance to correct the system politically. This is our chance to correct the system prospectively. It is now yours. It is now it is now our jobs to be an unrelenting force of pure, unadulterated hope. Enhance your mind. Open your heart to everything. We only have one shot at this. Let's not mistake our steps for those of the past, because it's already happened. The past is repeating itself. It always does. We have to be the ones that put the stop to the repeating hate, anger, and frustration. Again, the word of the night has been community. Focus on it. Focus on your community. Do everything you can. Start a march, not an angry march. Hold up a sign saying, "We believe in you." Go to a church that's going to be under attack by the current political climate. Tell them we believe that you're okay. You're one of us. We love you. We're going to stand by you. If you see someone being persecuted, take them on for a march, and everyone tell that person that they're a part of your life.
Reach out.
Reach out.
Find the groups in your community that most need help and donate your time.
You don't have to be the leader, but if you can lead, now's the time. Anyways, thank you, Professor Elliott. Thank you, Alex Weitzman. Thank you, Ryan Omega. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so very much, all of you. Thank you very, very much, Anna. I know I'm the weirdo with the mouth, but I'm speechless. The normal outro is not going to be played tonight. Just be safe. Be loving. And the awesomeness is with you. Good night. And we